Alright, hey guys, Hi-Fri here, and just trying to get my mind off of current world events. Yeah, so we're gonna take a look at an IEM today. It's the Tiandirenhe, or Tiandirenhe, TD18. This is a IEM that I bought off of AliExpress. For around, I think it was 32 bucks. Says 32.88 here. I'm not sure exactly how much I paid for it, but you can see in the listing here it is a 11 millimeter DLC driver. I bought just the earphones themselves, no cable or nothing, and this is what I received. So this is what you see here. This will not be an in-depth review. It's basically just going to be kind of an unboxing. I'm going to show the IEMs off, and then we're going to take them apart. And I'll give kind of my brief opinion of it. I have some graphs that I'll show you guys here. Yeah, but real quick before we get started in that, I just wanted to show you guys a couple things that I got. So let's see. So we got these new speakers here on the table. These are the Energy, I think GD10, GD20s. Got these off of, got them from Goodwill for 15 bucks a piece. So I got them for 30 bucks for the pair, and I thought it was a pretty good deal. I mean, they're in beautiful condition. You can see from the pictures here that they're in excellent condition. I mean, practically new. They sound pretty good. They have a 6.25 inch low frequency driver, and it is a polycone. It's painted silver, so it looks like it's aluminum, but it's polycone. And then they have the phase plug in the middle with kind of a cool looking surround ring. And then it has a 1-inch aluminum dome tweeter. They're relatively well constructed. They were $370 new a few years back, probably like 6 to 8 years ago. And I got these, like I said, for 15 bucks each, so it's 30 bucks for the pair. So hey, I mean, I needed smaller speakers for my desk. The studio monitors I had here were way too big, and they just took up too much room. So these are a little bit smaller, and they sound pretty good. I might upgrade the crossovers and put new tweeters in them. But the low frequency drivers sound pretty good. So that's one of the things that happened recently. And then also just earlier tonight, I took some graphs of the SIMGOT. So I have here, let me just go to the microscope. I have the Super Mix 4s. So I have these up for review soon. And so I decided to take some graphs of the IEMs themselves. So the graph you're looking at now is the left ear, and this is the crossover. So in red we have the bass driver, in green we have the mid-range, and in blue we have the treble. And then the purple is the complete frequency range. So that's all the drivers together. This is the left ear, and you can see that it falls off relatively quickly after like 13K. I think there's something wrong with this ear. So I went ahead and I graphed the right channel. So this is, now we're looking at the right ear. And you can see again, bass in red, the mid-range in green, and then the treble in blue. And there's quite a bit more treble extension. And then in purple is the full frequency range. Don't ask how I do it. I'm not going to tell you guys. You can figure it out for yourselves. It's not very hard if you figure out how to do it, but you can if you have a hybrid IEM and it has multiple holes, multiple tubes. You can graph each different port individually, and you can come up with a you can come up with a graph similar to this, and it'll show you all the individual cutoff points and whatnot, and you can kind of get a like a crossover graph that I have. So anyway, we will get into the review of those shortly, and then I'll do a teardown of them. I really want to get my hands on the EPZ P50s, but I don't have the money at the moment. I've seen a lot of reviewers talk about them. Super Reviews just posted a review. Audio, oh, what's his name? Anyway, there's quite a few people who have talked about them recently. So it looks like EPZ is starting to seed review units to all the different reviewers, and I really want to try those. So I will purchase a pair probably next week, I want to say. So I just got to be, kind of tight with my money. I mean, they're $200 IEMs. I don't want to be spending $200 every other week on earphones, especially when I'm not real big into them when it comes to this hobby. So anyway, the Tiandirenhe, these I got, like I said, for about $30, $32. What do they include? They include the case. It's just a cheap case, but it's functional. It's good. Does a good job. You got this little pouch here. You can put your ear tips in, kind of keep them separated, or you can put the IEMs in there and put your cable in the bottom portion. They're all this weird like taco shape, which is pretty funny. I always found it kind of fascinating. Like everybody else has like round ones or square ones, and these are like taco shaped, or like condensed like an eyeglass, like your eyeglass case kind of shape. And then we have the IEMs themselves. They have a wooden faceplate, stabilized, I guess I call it stabilized wood, and then a resin construction, kind of an odd shape or odd design. The nozzle faces upwards. Normally on IEMs, I don't know if I can find any, but the nozzle faces kind of downwards because that's the shape of the human ear. Your ear canal kind of goes downwards. These kind of go straight out, but yeah, you can see on the Tiandirenhe, the TD18, you can see they kind of angle upwards. So they have this really weird fit. They kind of protrude. They stick out kind of strange. I have some thoughts on these. I'll kind of share them before I take them apart. And then another thing too, I've noticed, because I had a buddy of mine that sent me a few pairs of his. There'll always be one. They'll send you one with like a really nice bright faceplate, that looks really nice, and then you'll always get one that's like a little darker or like kind of yellowed and just doesn't look as nice. And when they're next to each other, they just really contrast each other, and it's just like, man, I wish they both looked like, bright and nice. But I don't know, maybe that's how they just keep all the pieces of wood, similar, as they give you one nice one and one kind of gross looking one, to ensure that everybody gets both, the best of both worlds, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, the construction is good. You have this metal nozzle. You have the mesh. The mesh looks decent quality. You have your little pressure relief port on the side here. There is no like front vent that I can see. There's no venting anywhere for the front cavity. So they're pretty much just playing directly into your ears. How do they sound? Let's get into the graphs. So let's go get these out of the way here. So here's the graph. And this is kind of the yucky part. The bass is okay. I don't know. They don't really sound too boomy or anything. They're super bright in the mids, kind of nasally sounding. They're okay. They're just okay. They're not good. They're not great. They're just okay. Which is why I didn't really want to talk about them too much. I just want to kind of, throw this video out there and take them apart. So, for $30, are they worth the price? In my opinion, hell no. Not when you have a KZ out there. I mean, it just, for 10, I mean, for less even, for let's see. So these are the Merga, the KZ Merga. These are 2DD. So there's an 8 millimeter in the front and a 10 millimeter in the back. I got these for like $7. Okay, so they were like with shipping. I want to say they were like 8, 9, maybe $10. And these blow these out of the water any day of the week. Are these great in them? In their own right. For the price, yes. If they were $30, maybe. I mean, they're okay. They're good. Um, but yeah, I mean, they stomp all over the TD18. And then for $40, 38, $40, you have the ZVX, and I mean, these just completely annihilate the TD18s. So there's just no competition whatsoever. These things are like freaking fantastic compared to the TD18s. So are they good? No. Are they okay? Yeah. Are they worth $30? In my opinion, no. Not when there's a lot of other options out there. And like even if you want to go for this kind of like this mid forward response with a dip in the upper mids and then kind of a regain of energy in the treble area, you can go for the, like I said, the Celeste, the what is it, the shoot, I forget the name, but I just talked about them the other day, the Woo something, some Chinese name. But I mean, these are great. They're similar kind of tuning, a little bit on the bright side, mid forward signature, but these sound way better than the TD18. So why did I buy them? Well, first I saw the 11 millimeter DLC driver, and so I want to look into those. And then they were cheap, so I just wanted to pick up a cheap IEM with an 11 millimeter DLC driver. Plus, they said they were updated, so I was just kind of curious what kind of updates they did to the IEM. But yeah, so yeah, they're very shouty. There's a lot of 8K. The 8K is super prominent. You'll see a lot of graphs where there'll be energy in the 8K region, and it's like a coupler, a coupler resonance. It's not very noticeable. It you don't hear it when you listen to them normally, but when you measure them, you can measure the 8K for sure. So, but with these, not only do they measure, it's super audible. It's very much transparent, and you can hear it, and they sound very nasally and just not great. So let's talk about the design of the IEMs. Let me kind of focus on them and turn the brightness up here. So, what I think is going on, and the reason why they don't sound great, is because, in my opinion, the driver is too far from the nozzle. So, you have this narrow portion here on the front of the IEM, and the nozzle kind of protrudes away from the cavity. So my guess is, before we even open these up, that the driver is somewhere around here, kind of in the center towards the back, and you can kind of see a little bit of the metallic kind of sheen, through the resin there. So the driver is definitely somewhere around there. And what happens is, when you have a cavity that size, and I could kind of, well, I don't really have too many. I can kind of show you, just from looking at other IEMs, the shape of their different cavities. So this is the heart mirror, and you can kind of see the bottom is flat, and then there's like a curvature up towards the top. The less amount of room you have in this cavity, and the flatter it is, tends to cut down on a lot of resonances. The more tubular shape it is, and the larger area is inside this cavity, the more room you have for like standing waves and frequencies to kind of bounce around and resonate in. So, especially when you look at a lot of older version KZs versus a lot of the newer versions, they've done everything they can to kind of isolate the size of the cavity and isolate the driver away from the cavity, you know, kind of compress this space as much as possible and just have kind of a tube that comes off and focuses the energy directly off of the driver and out into the ear, instead of, you know, back in the day, which actually I could show you 1 second. I'm just grabbing IEM here. All right, so here's an older KZ. Don't ask me the model because I don't know off the top of my head. But here's a much older KZ nozzle or IEM, and you can see how much further back the driver is from the nozzle itself, and it's not isolated. There's, you know, it's kind of angular in shape if we look at it this way, and there's just a whole lot of space in there, which gives the driver room to resonate, which causes all kinds of standing frequencies and, you know, unwanted peaks and whatnot. Plus there's no dampening. So I mean, this is like back in the day. This is before they learned a lot about you know, manufacturing and tuning IEMs. Nowadays KZ has their dynamic driver, like their DD and their planar tuning down pat. Their balanced armature or their hybrid tuning, I'm not convinced that they have it down yet. I listened to their balanced armature IEMs a couple generations back, or like 1 generation back, and they were good, but they're not there yet. That's not one thing that they have mastered, and you know, I would love to give them some tips on it and kind of improve upon what they're doing. I think they're close. So with the Merga, they've kind of mastered the design of multi-driver systems. So you remember in the DQ6 they did, you know, the 2 drivers up top and then the 10 millimeter on the bottom, but they plugged the hole on. I don't think they did it knowingly at first, but I think they realized that they had plugged the drivers and that they weren't being used. Anyway, long story, but I think that they initially with their design they were thinking like, hey, yeah, this is something we can do, but then they realized, oh shoot, no, you know, we'd have to tweak the molds, and the molds were already made. And, you know, I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but I think, you know, if I were to guess what happened with the design of that, you know, I think that's what happened. But anyway, with that being said, whenever you have a small tube, it acts as a high frequency cut or a low pass. And so this 10 millimeter in the back is basically just on base duty. So if we were to isolate this low frequency driver and turn off the high frequency driver up front, we would get nothing but pretty much lower frequencies. And in their hybrids, they've kind of had issues with that in the past. They've basically, the way that their setups were is all the balanced armatures would be kind of doing like mid-high frequency duty, but like really like 7K and up, or like 8K and up. So like really high frequency or really mid-high and up. I mean, I probably can't even consider it to be mid-high. It's like, you know, high, like low treble and up frequencies. And then the dynamic driver would just do everything else. So like in their what was it, the one that they did with Critical, and you know, I kind of talked about how the treble BA wasn't really pulling much duty, or the BA wasn't pulling much duty. That's because that's how they were doing the tuning before. But now that they've discovered, you know, small diameter tubing, you know, they're much more capable of pulling off a pretty good hybrid. So you know, stay tuned. I'm sure they'll probably release one soon. But then with their balanced armature IEMs, sorry, I didn't mean to get off into this tangent, but with their balanced armature IEMs, they don't know how to vent them, and they're not, they don't have the dampening down yet. So, but I think they'll get there eventually. So anyway, But that is my guess with these. That the cavity is too large. There's too much room for frequencies to bounce around in. So listening to these, they don't sound bad. Like that's why I said they're okay. So the driver sounds very competent. The driver sounds clean. It plays nicely. But the tuning is off. The shell just sounds like it's not a good shell. So with that being said, let's cut this ramble short and let's take these apart. But yeah, so the driver itself sounds very competent, and that's one reason, I saw 11mm DLC, and I'm like, okay, how many DLCs do I own? How many 11mm DLCs do I own? This is, here, let me just show you. So these are all the drivers that I wanted to kind of go through with you guys in a video and just kind of highlight each one and all their different build, design characteristics and whatnot, and all the different technical approaches, the different companies took in manufacturing them. Because like I said, China they just pump this stuff out. I mean, they can just make a change and just boom, slam it out, make 100,000 of them, and then the next day change the design, tweak it, whatever. And there's like, I don't know what, 50 different factories all doing this stuff. So I mean, yeah, it gets pretty crazy. But yeah, so and Tiandirenhe or Tiandirenhe or whatever you want to call them, they have a pretty I would say, like, not well respected, but they're a trusted brand. They're a well-known brand, and among budget audiophiles, they'll be, they'll have a bunch of IEMs, and like quite a few of them will sound okay, decent at best, and then you get like a few here and there that just sound really good, and everybody will be like, hey man, check out this IEM, it's $20, $30 or whatever, and it sounds great. And of course, they're known for their looks. They have very nice looks. Like the wooden, stabilized wood faceplate. It's very nice. It gives the appearance of very high quality, with the resin, the build, the copper colored, not or brass nozzle, the ear tips, the accessory package, for what you're getting, you get a pretty nice setup. So let's take a look at this driver here. Let's go under the microscope. So right off the bat, because like I said, I'm pretty sure this is a high quality driver. And I kind of wanted to prove that theory, but like I said, I think it's in the wrong shell. So ideally, I would like to retune these. Let's see if I can get them out without destroying them. But yeah, so we can kind of see here, 3D printed design. And this is one of the things that has, I think, greatly forwarded the advancement of the Hi-Fi world, or IEMs in general. Is the fact that all these companies, they can do 3D printing. So you can revise your design and iterate on it like super fast. I mean, I can, design an IEM. I mean, not me personally, because I haven't put enough effort into, AutoCAD or whatever. But say I was, proficient in it, I could create a, a shell or whatever today, plop a driver in it, quickly tune it, listen to it, and make adjustments on the fly, and not even the next day, same day, have a different, revision of shell out, and try all those different revisions. Whereas when it comes to, injection molding, that's something where they would have to carefully mold, clay or whatever, cement, and then they'd have to take the metal or carve the metal and, create the die, for the injection molding. And that's a lengthy, expensive process. Once you create an injection mold, you're stuck with it, and the dies cost like thousands of dollars. So now, the fact that companies can just 3D print, and then not even for their R&D or for their design work, but they can use 3D printing for mass production. Okay, so now that brings the cost down tremendously. They don't have to hire a Now I will say injection molding. So the molding itself is very expensive. So like for example, all of KZ's IEMs are injection molded. This is all injection molded plastic, ABS or whatever. Whereas like for example, this IEM here by HBB and QKZ, this is a 3D printed resin IEM. So different type of plastic, different process, completely different. But and there are also limitations too. So because this is injection molding, there's certain features that are hard to obtain, where with 3D printing, they're much easier to obtain certain features. And you can create these tubes that are completely hollow that run throughout the IEM, whereas with injection molding you can't quite do that. So you notice this is not really a tube. It is a tube in quotations, but it's not. There's a pin. So in the mold itself, there's a metal pin that creates this certain portion here, and then there's a lip or whatever that creates the 90 degrees. So you have a pin that comes out one way, and then you have another like a etched carving or raised lip or whatever. And then when the plastic gets molded around the die, those create your features, and then they can remove the mold. And then when you butt the driver up, that seals this portion here and creates the backside of the tube surface here. And since this is just a pin, it's easily removed from the injection molding. So there are limitations. It's a harder process to achieve, certain design characteristics with an IEM. You can't create, these flowing tubes and stuff inside. And but I will say, so the tooling is much more expensive. The design is probably more expensive. It's harder to design and manufacture the tooling. But once you get the tooling work done, these things are cheap as dirt, because it's literally just a stamping machine. So just a stamping machine that just stamp, boop, plops out, stamp, boop, plops out. And you can create thousands of these, in minutes. Whereas with 3D printed mold, it takes longer. It takes, on a bed of these, you could probably do, like, depending on the size of the printer, you could probably do up to 30 of them, 32. On a print bed size, maybe this big. And but it's going to take you roughly, from bottom to top, say like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So you can, there's trade-offs between each manufacturing method. But anyway, with that rant over, let's just go back to the microscope. So yeah, so the driver appears to be high quality, but I don't have faith in this shell. So let's just break it apart. Whoops. All right. That looks interesting. What the hell? This is a weird driver. And I lost the nozzle, so I'm not going to be able to find that. That is a very, very weird looking driver. Now also they did claim it's DLC. Is it really DLC? Well, we will find out shortly. I need my clippers. Where did they go? Sorry guys. No editing Jeff here. Alright. And my voice is going out. It's getting dry. You can always tell when my voice goes out when I talk too much. Alright. So there's a little better view of the speaker. Very strange. I wonder if this is like an earbud speaker they decided to stick into an IEM. and it's like a topology uh diaphragm, which they didn't mention that. This is a topology diaphragm. You can see by its really crazy weird shape. That is the weirdest. I'm sorry, I'm like all caught up on how crazy this driver looks. So before I finish, you can see how large that cavity is. So you remember what I was literally just saying about the size of the cavity and the different resonances. So they literally just crammed it in the middle of the shell, and look at all that space. You can just see all that space there for sound to kind of bounce around in. I mean, you have this whole volume of area, and I mean that's just, that's not good. You want your driver to be as flat as possible, with your nozzle kind of coming off to the side, and that's going to cut down on a lot of the resonance. What was that? Hopefully that's not the part of the diaphragm. I don't know, maybe that's just glue. Can't tell if part of the diaphragm just came off. Anyway. So I will say right off the bat, it does not look like it's DLC. Alright. See if I can get this connector out. Also, I noticed Tiandirenhe or Tiandirenhe or whatever you want to call them, they use a lot of solid core conductors on their IEMs. I mean, the construction is really good. It's just the design is not the greatest. But the construction of their IEMs is actually pretty darn good. And so we can see here, looks like they're using like one, I don't know. Maybe they're both copper conductors and one, oh yeah. Yeah, it looks like they just put one inside of a PVC like tubing. But yeah, that is that is such a weird looking diaphragm. All right, so enough gawking. Let's so there's the backside. Let's break out our calipers here real quick and just measure this. Make sure this is 11 millimeters. So it says 10.8. So 10.8. So it's not quite 11, but close enough. And then let's just get in here real quick. I'm gonna kind of zoom up closer to the diaphragm. So this is what you would call a topology diaphragm because of all the weird protrusions. But yeah, that is really weird. Let's see if we can get like a side profile. So yeah, you see that? So you can kind of see the side profile of the driver. Very fascinating. That is an epic looking driver. Now it doesn't look like an expensive driver, and it looks like some kind of like earbud driver that they had repurposed for their IEM. But still, I mean, nonetheless, it's a pretty darn cool looking driver. It's not very deep. Looks like let's see. Sorry, I just want to take a look here. Yeah, so it's single magnetic circuit, the wires strangely go inside the center, whereas like other drivers, they'll go on the outside and kind of like wrap around the edge. And then as far as the DLC as far as the DLC coding goes, that I might have to get back to you guys on, because it looks like a normal PET driver. If it does have a DLC coding, it most likely is a very thin one. DLC drivers tend to look like cloudy and kind of like gray ish. Or like, I mean, I guess they could be like tan in color, but yeah, DLC drivers are not like super clear normally. So, and then here's the other one, same thing, back of the driver. Now, I would try to preserve this shell, but the only problem is that because this driver has literally no protection over the diaphragm, I'm afraid to damage it, and I don't want to damage it, so I think I'm just going to do the same thing to this one that I did to the other one. There we go. So here's the nozzle, and that's another thing too. So you can see there's no dampening inside this IEM, and so that's another reason why it has such large peaks. And then you can see the driver kind of peeking out there. But yeah, that's another reason why it's so peaky, is because there's no dampening. There's just nothing to cut down on the resonance peaks. So the driver's just free to sit there and kind of bounce around. You need to have some sort of resistance on the driver, some kind of dampening for the driver to react with, and kind of tame down those upper frequencies or those harmonics. So Oh, I want to poke it. Let's see. My squeaky ass little snips here. Can I get it out? I still can't get it out. Still stuck. Whatever glue they use too is like really hard glue. So I'm afraid if I try to pull the driver out, I'm going to damage it. I mean, that's really stuck on there. It's barely hanging on, but it's like stuck. Get off. Holy crap. All right. And so there is the other one. So yeah, cool beans. Cool beans, cool beans. So hopefully I didn't ding those up too bad. It's, you know, these things are very delicate. Drivers and speakers in general. You know, microplanar tweeters and balanced armatures and all that. They're all very sensitive to shock. And dynamic drivers, everything, all that stuff. So so whenever you have something like this, and you're doing what I do, you know, which is really the only way to rescue these. I mean, you could sit there and pick and poke at the glue. You know, you could use some sort of adhesive remover or solvent to try to loosen up the glue. But I mean, really, then you're gonna loosen up the glue on, you know, the driver itself, and you're gonna, you know, potentially, like, there's a vent port in the back here, so it could bleed into that, and, you know, and then it could you know, leach into the, you know, go past the glue or whatever, and touch the diaphragm and melt the diaphragm. I've seen that happen before. I worked on one IEM long time ago, and I used like super glue to glue it. This is before I knew what I was doing. And the cyanoacrylate or whatever it was, whoops, from the glue, it literally ate away at the driver and destroyed the driver. So but anyway, so that's it for the TD18. So I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of relatively long video. Again, I know, I'm sorry, I kind of go off on little tangents and whatnot, but you know, just kind of reminded me, bringing that up, of the changes in shell design in like with dynamic drivers and whatnot. There are, you know, small differences between different manufacturers, and you know, with different drivers and whatnot, and everything's becoming a lot more you know, homogeneous or whatever. It's like there's only a couple different shapes of you know, cavity now. It's not like what it used to be, where it's just a Wild West and everybody made a different shape of cavity. Now a lot of the manufacturers have kind of clued on to what works and what doesn't, so they're all kind of using the same cavity, which is like, you know, super small, super tight, with nozzle coming off either straight or, you know, like a 35, 45 or whatever you want to say. And then yeah, so a lot of companies have kind of figured it out, but Tiandirenhe, or whatever you want to call them, looks like they're still over here kind of doing their own thing. I mean, props to them. I'm not mad about it, but I just wish that these, you know, were tuned a little better, because then I would talk about them a little more, because these drivers do sound good. They sound high quality. They have a decent timbre to them, but just the shells, they sound so peaky inside of those shells. So, but anyway, all right, guys, catch you later. See ya.